Whenever I run into obstacles in my life, this is the framework that I always use to overcome it. I've tried and tested this framework out for 7 years now, and it was all inspired by Ryan Holiday and his best-selling book, The Obstacle is the Way. These are the most important lessons that you need to know from Ryan's book, and let's get straight into the first step. Rubin Hurricane Carter, at the height of his boxing career in the mid-1960s, was wrongly accused of a triple homicide and was given 3 life sentences. He was furious about what happened, but understanding that anger was not constructive, he refused to rage. Instead, every second of his energy was spent on his legal case. Every waking minute was spent reading law books, philosophy, history, and so on. He would learn and read and make the most of the time he had on his hands. He would leave prison not only a free and innocent man, but a better and improved one. And this took 19 years and 2 trials. Imagine that you've just ended work and you're on your way home, and it typically takes only about 30 minutes. But in reality, life happens, and so do traffic jams. You realize that it'll take a whopping 3 hours instead. When this happens, do you freak out because of the wasted time? Or do you flip your thinking to find the opportunity within? So instead, you might think, oh, okay, so now I've got 3 hours on my hands to listen to that audiobook I've been wanting to listen to. This is the power of perception. Most people would be so angry at the delay. You, on the other hand, now know the secret to flipping obstacles upside down and turning that into an opportunity. Take Rubin Carter. He could have spent the 19 years in prison being bitter, but he didn't. Instead, he spent those 19 years learning all he could about the legal system. After Carter got released, he could have spent the rest of his life suing the courts. But he didn't. Instead, using the education he gave himself in prison, he started fighting for innocent people who had been wrongly convicted. Now, maybe your employee makes a careless mistake that costs you money. Sure, you can view that as a loss, or you can flip the script and view this as a training instead. Maybe there was a computer glitch that erased your entire day of work. You can view that as a loss, or you can view that as extra practice that will make you twice as good. Someone at work is rude to you. You can take that as an insult, or you can think, okay, you underestimate me, I will prove you wrong. Last year, I hired an editor for one of my YouTube channels. It was my first time ever, so I blissfully ignored all the red flags and even stupidly extended him a loan to help out his family. And guess what? He ran away with my money. Now, I could have viewed it as a loss of thousands of dollars, but this book helped me to view it as like a payment for a training course on what not to do when hiring someone. Now I know all the red flags to look out for, or at least most of them, so I don't make the same mistake again. As Ryan says, there is no good or bad, there is only perception. The way we look at things is what either creates or destroys any obstacles in our way. And that is step 1. Find the opportunity within every obstacle in your life. Now we move on to step 2, taking action, and that's the next part of this book. In 1878, Thomas Edison wasn't the only person experimenting with incandescent lights, but he was the only man willing to test 6,000 different filaments, including one made from the beard hair of one of his men, inching closer each time to the one that would finally work. And of course, he eventually found it, proving that genius often really is just persistence in disguise. That's the key here. This is what most people think success looks like. You start from 0 and you progress upwards in a straight line. But unfortunately, this is actually what success looks like instead. Yes, you will see a general upward trend, but it's nowhere close to being a straight line because there will be many obstacles along the way. When you meet an obstacle, ask yourself these 2 questions. What went wrong here? How can I improve going forward? If you persist and do this for every obstacle, you will see a general growth trajectory. I've been creating content on YouTube for 3+ years now on another channel. And look at my progress. It is not a straight line. It's just constant ups and downs. And that is step 2. Learn and persist. Keep improving and don't give up. Now, as Ryan says, we can perceive things well, we can act rightly, but in the end, we might still fail anyway. That's when we rely on our final trump card, our willpower, our internal power, which is the 3rd and final section of the book. And with that, let's go through step 3. Thomas Jefferson was born quiet, reserved, and had a speech impediment. Compared to the great orators of his time, he was a terrible public speaker. His heart set on politics, he had two options: fight against this sentence or accept it. He chose the latter, channeling his energy into his writing, which others put into oratory instead. There, he found that writing was his strength. Jefferson was the one the founding fathers turned to when they needed the Declaration of Independence. He wrote one of the most important documents in history in a single draft. In life, we will sometimes come across obstacles that are not within our control. Thomas Jefferson had a speech impediment. However, because he accepted this condition, he channeled his energy into writing, which turned out to be his strength, and that got him to his destination. Thomas Edison was deaf in both ears, but like Jefferson, he accepted this condition and surprisingly even considered it to be a blessing. Why? Because this allowed him to think, to read, and to focus on his inventions with total concentration. Of course, this also got him to his end goal. Helen Keller lost both her sight and her hearing when she was 19 months old. But she accepted this, like Edison and Jefferson, and channeled her energy into reading and writing. She graduated from college, was the first deaf-blind person to earn a Bachelor of Arts degree, and also became a prolific author who published over a dozen books. These strong and stoic people accepted an obstacle that was not within their control, and instead channeled their energy into developing skills that they might have never developed if they hadn't accepted their conditions. In the end, they still reached their ultimate destination. On the other hand, most of us don't actually have it this bad, but instead of accepting our obstacles, we resent the fact that we have to face them in the first place. We find ourselves thinking about how much better a situation could have been and what we'd rather have instead. And because of that, our lives turn out for the worse instead of for the better. I've had allergic conjunctivitis, so that's pink eye, for more than half my life now. Even something as simple as dust will get my eyes infected. In fact, just this week alone, I've been in and out of the doctors twice. Previously, I didn't take this well. No matter what I did, I've gotten conjunctivitis dozens of times over the past 15 years. It was beyond my control. Then I became resentful, wondering why nobody else around me had it and why I was the only one. And I did so much to prevent it, but nothing worked. After I read Ryan's book, I slowly came to view this as a blessing in disguise because I now know much more about eye health than a normal person. I also have really good eye hygiene, and I'm always going for regular checkups to find even the smallest problem. So if anything does happen, as it will when you get old, I'll be the first to catch and prevent it. So in a way, this also manages to flip an uncontrollable obstacle upside down, if you remember what we talked about in step 1. And that is step 3. The Stoics call it the art of acquiescence, which is basically just a fancy way of saying acceptance. We accept and make the best of an uncontrollable obstacle. And if all else fails, we move on to step 4. Let's say you have an obstacle blocking your path right now. It seems huge and you don't know how to move past that. I don't know what you're going through right now. It could be a very difficult conversation with your spouse, or you could have lost a significant amount of money and years of your life to a failed business. But I think this is a good time to remind you that if you zoom out on the entirety of your life, something awaits for you at the very end. That is death. Death is not in our control. But what Ryan says is this: it doesn't need to be depressing, because in the face of death, prioritization is easier. That is the benefit of knowing we are going to die. If you knew you were going to die tomorrow, how small is your problem right now? And if even death can have some benefit, why would the other obstacles you encounter not have any benefit? But finding that benefit is up to you, and that is step 4. Meditate on your mortality. I'm going through a binge of all of Ryan's Holiday's books now. I'll leave a compilation on the screen when it's done, and I'll see you in that one.